in a lot of cases, especially on these smaller, like 1/72 and so on, I don't mind just hand brushing where I can get away with it, rather than trying to mess about with an airbrush to do what, a square centimetre, if that. One thing I do though is I do bog on a lot of decal softener and so on when I'm doing these instrument decals. I was just painting, I think it's the gimbal mount for the compass and so on. As I say, this isn't the most modern kit, but it comes together pretty nicely. You can see there, it's got that, what would I say, reinforced strut through the middle that adds that strengthening. Yeah, fuselage fit, no dramas at all. I should point out this is the number 45 Northern Rhodesian Squadron, Royal Air Force, Holmsley South, Hampshire, England, 1944. And I was just thinking as I was looking through this just before, because this is I think I finished this kit maybe a week ago, and I'm finally getting around to posting it. But 1944 is an interesting year in that I think there's this perception that once D-Day, June 6, all of that happened, it was easy, but it was actually a lot of really fierce fighting. And the reason I'm mentioning that is just I did end up doing a bit of weathering on this one. Just purely, it was serious war zone. It wasn't time for polishing things up and so on. So when I think it's needed, or I guess I'm in the mood as much as anything, and what I'm thinking about at the time affects how I do the weathering. And you'll see some of that at the end. So do hang around for that. As you can see here, it goes together nicely. The only thing that, this is one of those really silly sort of whinges. I do get a bit annoyed when I have to do lots of rockets and all of that. There's always a ton of drilling and they're tedious and so on. Having said that, they do look really cool once you've got it all done, but what's that, 16 drill holes minimum and so on, it adds up. Can be a bit tedious. One other interesting thing is the invasion stripes. I was reading again recently that, and this is actually quite interesting, what was I going to say? Yeah, ignore my stuttering at this point. Yeah, with the invasion stripes, because they needed to keep it as secret as they reasonably could, let's say, a lot of the invasion stripes didn't go on the aircraft and so on until a day or two before. And interestingly, somewhere like Hampshire was packed with kit ready to go. But they didn't want to give the game away. So apparently they were, like all those Horsa gliders and stuff, they were using brooms with black and white paint just to slap it on. So from a modelling point of view, it's almost interesting. You see these really neat measured invasion day stripes, but in reality, from what I understand, a lot of them were literally painted on with brooms, just as part of that keeping mum, as they said. You know, walls have ears and all that, people looking over hedgerows. So just one of those interesting things. And of course, Northern Rhodesian was saying a bit different, so that caught my eye. Painting, most regulars will know I tend to use lacquers. In this case, and this is probably an interesting sort of observation, when your paintbrush, really sounding old, does that, you get that sort of spluttering. It's really telling you, don't be a lazy so-and-so and get it cleaned. You can see there. And this was purely me being lazy, and there's no real excuse for that. My only defense is I think everyone can get to that point sometimes. I think this was one of those ones where it's a bit of a shame really, because I like the plane, but for some reason I just wasn't really in the zone. And I think most of you will know what I mean by that. So yeah, I'm keen to hear your thoughts on that, definitely, because it's interesting. There's some builds I do get into and I'm really in the zone, as they say, and others I feel like I'm struggling a bit. And sometimes it's nothing to do with the kit. It can be a crappy kit and I'll be really enjoying myself. So I think it's a bit of state of mind, as the old Marines adage, used to say. This is one of those ones, it's a bit annoying, but in relation to, what would I say, my not being exactly in the mood for it, I did go with the decals. Two reasons. One, I'm not going to lie, I was a bit lazy, and sometimes I guess since these are intro kits, it might be useful for someone to see how you handle these big slabs of plastic, because it's not always easy, and well, definitely not. The only thing I'd say is these are cartographer and stuff, so they're pretty good, but you're dealing with pretty big slabs. I think you just, what would I say, slide it off the backing paper is one of the easier ones, and then you need to get it as good as you can see there, and then I just start slapping on decal softener, and really it might even go over a few days. The ideal situation though, of course, is to actually mask it and paint it. You'll always get a million times better result doing it that way. And the nice thing is, and I've noticed this in some of the later editions of Airfix kits, I've just been doing a mosquito, actually, the Airfix mosquito. They actually do have something very cool in some where they have the measurements for the invasion stripes, so you can mask and paint it very easily, which is really cool. The roundels going on, straightforward stuff at this point. But yeah, I've always, sometimes the decals can look cool, but especially if you're doing, say, some of those, like I've got a Japanese F-15 with all the artwork and decals, and sorry, not decals, but cherry blossom and stuff. There's no way you could paint it, but yeah, if you can paint things like the Invasion Day stripes, yeah, always going to look much better, get a much better finish. My paint job, you'll see that some of it looks a bit sloppy, and I'm not going to defend that because it was, but most of it ended up covered up. That's why I was sort of aware of, okay, this is going to be hidden, this is going to be visible. And yeah, there was a couple bits I did come back and touch up, old wobbly hands trying to hold things. One other thing, especially if, I don't know, you're a beginner, don't jump in and start doing the mounting points and so on for your rockets. I've done it before, and once you do that, it becomes quite hard to, as you can see there, to do the undersurface, putting on the invasion stripes on essentially a tooled up surface. And this is what I was saying before, I just slap this stuff on, really slap it on. I do have Microsol, which I've been using a lot more, but I think I'm just using the Mr. Softener as much its habit, and it's a nice handy bottle, which I think everyone knows who's used Microsol products, which this isn't slagging off the products itself, but the bottles suck. You got to have make a stand for it or sort something out. Whereas I just have the Mr. Softener bottle on my desk and, yeah, like you say, slap it on. So as I was saying before, if you had put these mounting points or hard points on first, then you're going to be in real problems when you come back to do the invasion stripes. Yeah, it would be very tough going. You can see there that the softener does really make a difference. Is it as good as painting? No, not arguing that. But compared to how crappy it looks when it first goes down, yeah, it's not too bad. As planes go, yeah, this is a nice little kit, something different, especially the pattern. I got to say the colours, I didn't capture them all in my videoing, but the prop spinner, it's matte beige. The other colours, ocean grey, olive drab, and medium sea grey. So it's definitely an interesting combination, and it's a nice looking kit. And obviously you can see there I've done it in flight. Doing some weathering here, but this is weathering in the sense of there's lots of rockets and oil and whatever they're flying through. So I'm kind of keeping that in mind rather than hard damage like sort of paint scrapes and stuff. This is more sooty weathered effect. There's lot of stuff burning in those in that time. So that was my logic. And the other thing that no one admits, but I'm going to say it outright, weathering is really good for hiding your screw-ups. Not that there's too many in this one, but it just sort of, I think, gives it a little bit more visual appeal, let's say. So there it is. It's a nice enough little plane, no complaints. And interestingly, a Typhoon is one of my favourite aircraft. It's one of those really, really cool, powerful planes that it was really pushing, as what would you say, some of you will know this a lot better than me. It was really pushing the engineering of these single prop aircraft. So there you go. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hit me up in the comments and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you again. Bye for now.